And with that, we are launched.
Yay! Yay!
Yay!
It's a Wednesday. Woohoo!
Yay, Wednesday, hump day. All right.
Yeah, middle of the week. That's good. I like
Yeah,
it.
I've got my Sunday best on today,
That's good. That's good. I got my new haircut. We're ready to
Oh,
go.
you are aerodynamic.
Yeah, it's just easier, shaving on your own. Just waste no time.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of stopped doing that. I kind of got the COVID-19 hairstyle growing in on my face too. Soon my eyebrows will connect too. I can't wait for that comb over.
Yeah, I don't have any of this. Just not in my genes. Can't grow
Yeah.
anything. I wish I could.
So we're here with Talking Palettes again. I'm your host, Daniel Crosier, and I am here with the remarkable, the absolutely phenomenally talented Nicky Soh. Nicky, how the hell are you?
I'm good, really good. Yeah, thanks for having me. This is fun. It's good to go online and talk to other people instead of staying at home alone. Yeah.
Right. You've got your 2.5-year-old to keep you company?
Yeah, I got my hands full just with that one toddler. It's 4 adults with one kid. We still can't handle it. He's pretty much has free reins around the house, just running around. Especially these days, I'm teaching, so it can be quite uncomfortable. Yeah.
You're teaching online?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am. So these days I'm teaching comics, sequential art at my my previous school that I attended, Savannah College of Art and Design. A shout out to SCAD. Yeah, so I'm teaching online classes, and it's been amazing. Just sharing knowledge with the kids. I've always loved teaching. Always wanted to do it. So the right opportunity came about. I crossed this path 2 years ago when I came back to the States. Almost got it, but we had the baby, so I couldn't move to get a full-time job, teaching. So right now that I can do part-time, it just works out perfect for me. So that was fantastic. Yeah.
With SCAD, yeah, you went there originally, right?
Yeah, I went there, and last month you had Jorge and Morgan. So those two are my classmates. Yeah, my best buddies. Yeah, so we went to school together, and I got my MFA there. I went through SCAD for my bachelor. I got lucky and skipped the bachelor. It's another long story. So I didn't finish my bachelor, and I went into the master's program, and that saved me some time. So I got a master's in sequential art and a MA in illustration. Yeah, so now I'm back teaching. It's just great to be sharing with industry knowledge that I know and things that I went through. Sharing with the students. Amazing. I love teaching. I really do. I just like talking to people. That's why I go to conventions as well.
I first met you face to face like a year and a half ago, about a year ago. With Andy Kuhn and Jorge.
And Jorge, yeah.
Yeah, at the burger place here in Denver. I forget. It's over by Cherry Creek Mall or someplace, but the food was good.
Yeah, I don't even remember it was a burger place. I just remember we had a blast. It was really fun because people were just, I think we were all in sync, just talking about what we love, and that was just fantastic. Especially my first time meeting you and Andy, so that was really enjoyable. Too bad we can't meet this year because like with COVID, I was thinking of traveling because I go to conventions, and that would have been a blast just to do it again, all over again, just to catch up. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Yeah, the Denver Pop Culture Con, they just
They delayed and they announced a cancellation. I think for this year.
Yeah.
I think
So they're going to postpone to then. Dink. That one they canceled early, and so they're gearing up for 2021. So luckily you're in Texas. So when this lifts, we drive through Texas because Elise has a beach house in Alabama.
Oh really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes we have to drive through Dallas, and sometimes not.
Yeah. It's pretty hot here right now.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty intense. What's the temperature like?
I don't know. I don't even look at it, and I'm still not sure about numbers because I came, obviously I came from Asia. Yeah, I'm originally from Singapore, So just the Fahrenheit and Celsius is sometimes the numbers don't make sense. I just turn on the AC, make sure it's cold, and I'm good. Yeah, but at least it's not as cold as I mean, the weather here is slightly better than. Well, I shouldn't say this. Then people who watch this is gonna think I have a bias towards the East Coast, which is where I was in the last 4 years. You know, I was from New Jersey. We moved to Dallas because of work. So you know, the snow just gets me because I'm in Asia. Like I'm more accustomed to the hot weather. So I it's still comfortable here, I guess. Yeah, not too bad.
Not too bad. That's cool. You coming from Singapore, you know, did you just come here for school? Were you always interested in the arts?
Yeah, so this is it's probably going to be a long tangent. So
Excellent.
Excellent. The more you talk, the better. Yeah.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah. So I studied animation when I was a student, and I'm not sure if you know. A lot of people probably don't. So Singapore is like a small, tiny little island in Southeast Asia. It's besides Malaysia and Indonesia, so we're like a multiracial country. And I studied animation primarily. And once you finish and you're past 18 years old, you have to go through the army. Like we have a conscript army, means all the males have to go through. So I stayed in the army for a long time because I was the sole breadwinner for my family during that period of time. So I had to make money. Yeah. And somehow miraculously, after that, I came out. I went to sales job. I did financial advising. I was doing pretty well, and something changed in my life. My godmother passed away, and so I had a change of heart. So I decided to go back and pursue what I originally intended to do, which is art. And instead of animation, I actually pursued comics because I primarily storytelling has always been the thing I really wanted to do. Yeah. I thought if I want to do this alone, it's easier to draw a comic. I mean, it's not easy, obviously, but much easier than doing the whole entire animation on your own. So then I applied through a scholarship. Thank God the government, I'm a government scholar. They gave me a scholarship and I landed in SCAD. And that's where I got to meet all my friends. So that's how I ended up in the States. You know, so really lucky, my path, I would say, thankfully to a lot of people that brought me here. So that's my first venture and how I really got into comics, I would say, mostly because of storytelling. Yeah.
What growing up, what were you a fan of? Like, was there any comic book or animation that really stood out?
Yeah, manga. I would say like in Asia, I think most people, again, I am categorizing people around me, you know, mostly read manga because that was more accessible to us. So like Dragon Ball, and then you know about things like X-Men from the cartoons in the 90s and Batman, the animated cartoons. So I do know about that, but mostly just reading is just Dragon Ball, Slam Dunk, all the manga comic. So when I came here, I was pretty ignorant in terms of what mainstream comic is and indie comic is. So when I was in school and started going into like the American comic industry, I fell in love with primarily like just mainly indie publishers. Should I say indie publishers? Like First Second, Scholastic. Anya Ghost was the first comic book that I bought. So I'm very indie, I guess, in that way. I do read mainstream comics like Batman, Scott Snyder's Batman, you know, Greg Capullo's art, those stuff, and Image comics, but mostly like indie work and Image stuff. Yeah, that's what I read. Yeah.
Nice. That's so that's pretty cool. It sounds like you're pretty well diversified in all your flavors.
Being forced to.
Well, and with like something like Dragon Ball Z, my first experience was watching the cartoons in the 90s when I was in high school.
Oh, okay. Different, like a flip of coin. You were watching the Japanese cartoon then.
Well, here, you know, even back then, you know, comics were not like the norm. It wasn't the acceptable thing. I grew up out in a small farming community, so comics weren't always the most accessible thing, but cartoons certainly were. So that was a lot of fun. I had a friend who his family was stationed in Japan for most of his young years, so he was very ingrained in that culture, and so Dragon Ball Z wasn't on TV, but he had all the VHS copies of a bunch of episodes. So, we would sit and watch them. I had no idea what was going on, but it was cool as shit.
Yeah, I mean, the 80s and 90s had so many good things from like even Japanese animation, like Macross, all those stuff.
Right.
And like American cartoons, you have like Gummy Bears and all the I don't know if you know Starcom, like Gummy Bears, all those cartoons like way back.
Oh, I remember the Gummy Bears. They would be in syndication on Sunday mornings. So,
yeah, there were so many things like He-Man, all those things going on. That was a period of just creativity, like Mask and oh my gosh, and Silverhawk. I don't know if you. Yeah, so I was a huge fan growing up. Just
Mask, yeah.
Mask.
Yeah. There was Insectors.
Transformer. There was like a dinosaur one.
But that Transformers is Japanese, so we just repackaged it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So like, man, that was a period of just so much creativity. Just going on in the world, primarily between the American side, like the Western side, and just Japanese side. So I was just sticking all in. Yeah.
As far as like, because a lot of your work is very like kind of has a whimsical style to it. I can see when you said animation and stuff, I totally see that in your work, and it's lighter and fluffier, especially your blue line sketches that you post on Instagram, which are absolutely just adorable.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's stellar. I think Morgan and I are constantly liking.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I try.
Oh, it's great.
Both of you are like, you guys are amazing artists on your own right. Like I'm just happy to be here.
Well, you're sweet. I don't know what I'm doing and where I'm at half the time, I'm just glad I'm not, finger painting my own poop or something,
Yeah, no, I feel like, getting into the States, I'm just being honest, have changed so much of my perception of art, and just in terms of how it tweaked my art style, like, right? People constantly talking about art style. I used to draw really, really bad. Like, even I've been telling my students, like, really, really bad. It took me a long while. I think the culture just coming here, talking to friends, reading more American comics have changed my art. Looking at, like, I don't even know who was Eric Canadian until I met him, like people like Matteo Scalera, looking so many amazing artists. And that's what's great about going to school for me. And then having friends and this online community of Instagram where you look at so many different things. So that has really helped me so much, which eventually led me to doing a lot of comic gigs and whatnot, especially with Webtoons, things like that. I really appreciate friends and just in general coming to the States. I would say that really shaped majority of how I write my stories and draw my art. Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is Webtoons your main platform? Because you mostly do a lot of digital now.
Digital. Yeah.
A lot of print too.
So the thing was, after graduating from SCAD, in 2014, once I graduated, I left the country because as a scholar with Singapore, I had to fulfill my obligations. So I went back and worked. I was lucky again. I don't know why I'm so lucky. I pray to the new gods and the old. And
excellent.
I got really lucky.
To all the right ones.
No, friends. Really, it's friends is what it is.
Blood.
Yeah. I think so along the way. Jorge can tell you about that. But so I went back, and I was working in a startup that was trying to start a advertising company. And because of my experience in sales, they brought me on. So I was the producer. I stayed there for 2 years until I finished my obligation. Then I got married with my wife. And all the time she was here, we were doing long distance relationship for about 6 years. Yeah, 6 years of long distance. So I came back here. It is. Like, back in the day, I would always tell her, I knew immediately she was the one. It's one of those things that, again, I am so lucky that...
Nice.
It really is. And yeah, she didn't believe me, but I knew it was her. And so, I got lucky. She was still here. She works in the fashion industry.
Oh,
So
cool.
we came back once we got married. And in fact, this weekend was when the wedding thing happened on June 6th. Because June
Oh,
5th is my birthday. So it
your
was,
anniversary.
yeah, it's coming up. Yeah, coming up. So
Nice.
so when I came back in 2016 or 17, I didn't want to do advertising because I've never given comics a chance since I studied it, I left, and I did something else. So when I came back, I couldn't work as well because I was on spouse visa because my wife is not an American citizen or a green card holder. Now we are. I mean, like back then we weren't. So she was just working. So I couldn't work. So I did my own comics and I started going comic conventions. So that first year in 2017, I created my own comics like every other month. So I have issues. I was just doing syndication on my own and I was just going comic conventions. That first year, I went to 27 comic shows.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I think there's 52 weeks in a year.
Yeah.
So every other week, I was going to a Comic Con, either cross country, driving, or flying. So that and drawing comics.
Yeah, and making your own. Oh my gosh, that's phenomenal. That's a lot of commitment.
It is. I mean, like when you had nothing else to do, right? It's not like I can work. I'm pretty sure if I wanted to, I could have reached out to, because we were in New Jersey. It was half away from Manhattan. I could have gone over and started sending portfolios to see if anyone would sponsor a visa for work if I want to go back into advertising. I really wanted to give this a shot. So I did indie comics first, so selling on my own. And after 2017, the entire year, I think primarily people were tired of my face because every show, all the editors, back then, a lot of editors go to comic conventions. Right. These days, not a lot, only the people who set up the booths and sell the comics, Right. So I think in 2018 was the year that I got a lot of hitways. So I got a lot of gigs. Cool. So I was doing Adventure Times for Boom Studios. Nice. Other stuff, but I was also avidly targeting live Webtoons from Korea because I knew them before they came here, and I knew the platform was gonna blow up, and it is now. Yeah. I mean, I think Webtoons right now have at least 52 million active users monthly. Active, like not even. So that number is just insane because I don't even think. I'm not sure. Okay, this might not be true, but I don't even think like Comixology or Marvel website garners that kind of traffic. It's insane. Oh, 52 million unique active users. That's some craziness right there. Right.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that'd be interesting to cross-reference. But I would agree. I think Webtoons is the bigger platform.
Yeah. I had a huge interest in Webtoons, and then because they kept seeing me, and I was just actively introducing them to creators because they were the only one that was paying a monthly salary. Essentially, that is what it is. If you are featured with them, so I mean, it's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, because just like something right now, it's about 40 comic panels every week colored. It's not. It's a lot of work because that translates to. If you're looking at 6 panels per page,
draw a straight line in that amount of time.
No, it can be done. It's just you can prepare beforehand, but it ranges between I think 30 to 60. I don't want to quote because that was the kind of panels I was drawing. So yeah, 2018 was the time that I got a feature. They picked up my story, and I finished the first season. Then last year I couldn't pick up the second season, even though they offered it because. I relocated, something happened in my life. I had to relocate with my wife to Texas here. So then, ever since then, I've been getting gigs doing consultation. So these days I'm doing consultation work for traditional and digital publishers, talking about how to move your platform to the digital space. Okay. So I do a lot of studies on the market since I was an early adopter of the Webtoons, like infinite scrolling. Right. So I talked to a lot of like Chinese companies, studios, Indonesian studios, whatnot, and do market trend, like I wouldn't say customer, I would say reader acquirement, marketing, advertising. So just consultation work and education right now that I'm doing, and obviously my own art. So that's what I'm preoccupied with these days. So a lot have changed this past 1 year since we've met. It's crazy, yeah.
That's fantastic, because you don't normally get that that kind of background, like in sales and implementation on digital platforms. With artists, usually they're especially with, I think, comic book artists, it seems like they're kind of stuck in one mode.
Focus on the craft, I would say. Yeah.
Right. As opposed to the business end. So with if you don't mind me picking your brain,
no,
what would you say?
Can't share my secrets. No. No, go ahead. No, sorry. I'm just kidding.
What's your secret? How do you stay so young? Well, first I think.
You don't even know. I am so old, my friend. Yeah. I have no secrets. Yeah.
No. So with somebody who is just coming on, looking at like Webtoons, because that setup is different than Comixology. How would you go about setting that up? Because I think the last time I looked at that, a lot of payout to the artists and creators also comes through Patreon. That was like a year or two ago. Mm-hmm. But is that still the case, or you got it, and you have to keep up the work, right?
Yeah. So I'm not speaking on behalf of Webtoons. It's just this is just speaking on my own experience, and as a huge fan of the platform, like and whoever's watching this, if you're interested, just research Naver Line Webtoons, because there's a lot of Webtoons platform out there. There's Line Naver, which is the biggest. There's also Kakao. Then there's like Tapastic. There's also Chinese companies coming out like Senshin, like huge numbers. These people are doing like billion viewership. It's insane. Like some of these comics, and the money they're making is it's insane. Like the market is really changing from. Thankfully, I got to talk to these peoples and studios, and just looking at the numbers, it's just insane. So feel free to go out there and research. So Webtoons has two different modes of payment. The first time is anyone can publish online Naver Webtoons. You can just go up there. And it used to call Discover, where people could post their work and they discover you maybe. And now it's called Canva, Canva, and anyone can post on there. And then if you qualify for a certain number of subscribers and also like viewership, because you might have like 10 subscribers, but you have like 2 million viewership, like that's not likely to happen. I'm just exaggerating. So they look at both numbers to determine if this is qualified for their rewards or program. And then it used to be if you hit I think 1,000 subscriber and have at least 40,000 viewership that people have read your comic, you qualify for this program where if every week you're uploading on Canva or Discover, right, they would pay a certain amount of money to your Patreon. And then on top of that, there's ad revenue sharing, because when you scroll through Webtoons on your cell phone, on the app itself, there's like ads. So that's ad sharings. I don't know quite how it works these days because things have changed drastically. There's another way to get paid, which is what I mentioned earlier. If you become a Webtoons feature artist, they pay you like a fixed amount for each episode, and then you have to deliver weekly. Most of the time, you draw ahead of time and prepare a few episodes before your launch, and it works from there. So everyone's payment is different. But primarily, from what I know and my own experience, you get paid at least $2,000. That's the minimum, and it can go upwards. I've seen people who negotiated differently, writers and artists, each get a different cut. So I know it starts from $2,000. It used to be, maybe things have changed, and they also do ad sharing, and even better now. There are creators that have this thing unlocked, which is you have future episodes, and if the fans want to read it, they can purchase it. I think you get 70% of the share, and it comes out to quite a big bag of money, according to some of my feature creators friends there. So there's a couple of ways, and that's what Line Naver does. There's other companies like Kakao, Denim, they do it differently, where there's like subscription or they pay you based on a coin system, where if the readers wants to read more episode, they have to pay a coin to unlock. So that's how Line Naver does it.
Nice.
That I know of. So, and you were, maybe I'm getting off track. So you were saying, you were asking if someone's going into this platform, how should they look at it?
Yeah, how do they, navigate that? They just go set up a profile and then just start.
Yeah, you just set up an account. I think you can do it with your Facebook or Twitter. I think I did it with my Twitter account or your email. You set up an account, it's free, and then you can publish it as an author. Right now, they have a competition running, and if you do 3 to 5 episodes on a short story and you get picked up, I think it's 15 grand or something. I'm not sure of the amount. So they regularly have competition. So anyone can post there. And once you post there, if you're doing well, they like the story, they might pick you up as a featured creator. And they're still, I believe they're still constantly looking for stories, because content is king right now. Like the world is lacking content, and they're even doing animated series on some of their own creators' work. Yeah, they have animations on. Yeah, they're doing big, and they're doing a lot of different stuff. And I've been, because of my work as consultation, I have to do research and whatnot. They recently, I think in January, they bought over a company that does AI, and that's going to be really scary. Yeah, a lot of people don't know. Yeah, so
it seems like with countries like South Korea, China, Japan, comics and manga are just they're still exploding, and it just seems to get bigger and bigger. Is that pretty accurate? I mean, with Webtoons, it's so massive.
Yeah, it's massive. It is.
And then when you talk about like comics in the U.S., specifically like with Marvel and DC, all I ever hear is like
shrinking and
sales
shrinking
numbers and stuff. It's significantly less since back in the heyday in the 90s when a book would sell 1 million copies or more, and then now you're lucky if top tier, I think, would get like 50,000. I might be wrong.
Yeah, no, pretty much. I think so. Still, like if you can get 100,000, that's insane number.
Right.
This is so. There's a lot to this, because it's firstly it's the U.S. market, and then it's also the Asian market, and so Webtoons started in 2004 until 2014.
Okay.
It's like 10 years in the making, and it was solely focused on its own market in Korea. And why it was able to do so well is because of the backing by Naver. So Naver is kind of like a website search engine. Think of it as Google. So if today Google says like, hey, I want to do comic, I'm gonna pay creators to do comic, and every time people click on Google to do a search, there's like the search, there's like news, there's like image. I'm just gonna smack a column that says webcomic. You know how much people will be reading the comic? The kind of traffic will be insane. And that's what Naver did. They banked on it, and they did that. And because they were a search engine, and the CEO, Kim, from the founder of Webtoons, came from Naver. He came out and said, this is what I want to do. I think we can change comics to digital, because he was reading Japanese manga, and then the comic industry, traditional comics in Korea, was dying. So he came up with a movement, and it took him 10 years. Then 2014, he said, let's go to the States. And within a few years, they're here. And it's also, there's a lot of things to talk about. And this can go for a few hours, because I've been following this for a long time. And one of the biggest reasons why Korea, especially people like Kakao, Denim, and then Webtoons and Tapastic, because Tapastic is linked to Korea as well. Like, it's not just an American company, and there's like Lesin. They can do this is because the Korean government has a unique funding for entertainment. That's why you see K-pop blew up so big with Psy and Gangnam Style, and now you hear about K-pop groups like Twice, all this, different things coming up. That's the reason, because they match $1 to $1. So if they invest $10,000, then the government is going to back $10,000. So they have double the money to do marketing. So they just went crazy with it because it's like
fantastic. They're investing in their own culture.
It is, and like in the entertainment industry, so they have this big fund backing them. So they have no like it's no like there's nothing to be afraid of. I would say so. Imagine, man, if the government here would say like, okay, we're gonna push for entertainment further, because I do think we're losing a lot of creativity, especially you look at Hollywood, like the stories are shrinking. We're looking at more like Marvel comic stuff, and there's not a lot of original stuff coming out. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is I think the upbringing of millennials, because primarily the people who read this are like kids from 12 to 14, young kids, and they're on the phone all the time. And this action of swiping is way much easier than what we know traditional webcomics, which is like one page scrolling, and then you have to zoom out to look at the panels. It's just what they do.
Even that is more advanced than where I'm at. I'm still in the tactile flip the floppies,
yeah. No, but I think there's still opportunities for traditional, because people do buy comics. If you look at successful webcomic artists or creators that launch Kickstarter, not only they get good numbers. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I just feel like, there's this big opportunity we're missing. Now, one of the company that has been successful in this in the States is Go Comics. It's like a syndication, so it posts a lot of like Peanuts, Garfield, like older stuff, and they have been very successful. I think it's subscription based. I think just looking at previously, they made at least like $1 million to $4 million yearly. That's a huge number. They're the only company that I know. I might be wrong. Like I know that is doing so well. The rest of the publishers are either just having a website, posting pages onto which really doesn't facilitate the shift over to this new trend, because people don't, I guess millennials or like young adults or even myself, we're over with that format of reading it this way. It's easier. So I think it's that change. I do think there's an opportunity, and hopefully someone comes in and make that change. So, and it's just very different, because right now it's dominated by Korea and China. Any comic that's drawn in kind of like the manga style, which primarily is the style that everyone is used to in Webtoons right now. If you want to do distribution in Asia, the amount of money they can get is like a few fold comparing to a Western art style right now. And that's the reality. So, man, it's just really crazy. I would say.
Man, that's fantastic. Let's talk a little bit more about the stories that you like to write and illustrate. What do you have currently on Webtoons that you're really into?
So my own feature is called Elise on Webtoons. I finished the first season, and the second season is on hiatus. And it's about all ages. So I do a lot of all ages writing. That's how I write, and then that's why the art style is more cartoonish. Even my illustration, my color illustrations. But I also like to draw very gritty and just whimsical, detailed art. That's where my blue pencils comes from. I wish I know how to write more like serious tone stories, because I also read them like Saga, East of West, those kind of style. But unfortunately I don't. So hopefully down the line I'll develop something better where I could use my blue pencil art style to draw those kind of like work. Hopefully,
That's pretty cool. And don't you also do some published work with on Kickstarter platforms, like kickstarting your own project?
Yeah. So my own comic that I kickstarted was the one that I did when I was in the States. It's called Rock Man Rock. It's something to do with music. So I'm very passionate about music. So it got funded, and then the first volume is out. I'm still working on the second volume. It's been a long while. So that story, it's also all ages. I really like the all ages story. I would say it's easier to digest, especially now that I have a toddler. I think it's very important to talk about all ages stories that are a little bit more serious in tone, but the kids can still
Yeah.
understand because these young kids are very intelligent. They're not dumb.
No.
I think that's kind of missing, and so that's primarily the market I do for my own comics in terms of writing. Yeah.
Nice. When it comes to comics, I mostly am known for doing like horror comics.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
but
love horror comics.
what's that?
I love horror comics.
Oh yeah, they're fun and everything. But I've got nieces and nephews, and yeah, my pot belly says I'm slowing down. So yeah, I wanted to do more kid friendly comics. Elise and I are doing that. So I really enjoy that, and I do find that you can tell pretty sophisticated stories, directed as towards kids that everybody can enjoy. But there's always that thing in the back of my mind too, like I don't know if you're familiar. You probably, I'm sure you are. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yeah.
Growing up, I mean that was kind of a scaled down kids show where Rogers would talk to kids about really big issues, coping with trauma, depression, talking about death and things like that, but to a child. And I was just like, wow, what, it's like, yeah, kids can handle a lot. They're incredibly resilient, and yeah, they can process a lot. They're, yeah, like you said, they're not dummies.
Yeah, it is. And I think stories like that are super powerful. Like, so one of my comic heroes that I fortunately get to meet and talk to as a personal level, like Kazuki Bushi, he does Amulet, like it's published by Scholastic. It's
Oh, okay.
a big book in, like schools, like children's and teachers constantly rave about it. The first few pages of Amulet 1 back then, I think this book has been around for 10 years. Right now it's going on book 8, the last book.
Wow.
Like the first volume and the first few pages was a death scene, like the father's death, a car crash. Yeah, and that was so inspirational because it's talking about how kids can grow up with loss.
Mm-hmm.
And then that book did so well. Like it made so many kids around the States read comics and do reading because like he constantly received emails from parents saying like, my child has started reading because of your comic, your graphic novel. So that's what I believe as well. Children comics can do so much more.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot of publishers are actively doing or seeking out YA young adult comics content. So yeah, I totally agree. I think kids these days, especially with what's happening around the world, I think they should get more education and more content about this. I think this is missing. This is kind of like a taboo. You don't want to talk about it because it might be dangerous, might be too much for the kids. Yeah.
No, I think it's something that needs to be talked out,
addressed. Yeah.
Instead of like something like I don't know about your upbringing, but like here, like sex education was very taboo. So nobody none of the parents wanted to talk to their kids about that. Yeah, go to school and learn about that. It's like, there's Playboy, there's Hustler magazine, we're fine.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, pretty much in Singapore, like my parents never talk about that stuff, that kind of stuff with me. You just have to learn on your own. There's so many things you have to learn on your own that you don't know. So yeah, with this digital age, I think a lot of things have changed. So comic is really a good outlet for people to learn, just get into it. Like we have comics like Smile. Who's that lady who writes it, and which talks about her upbringing with braces, how she was frowned upon and had like this peer pressure that she doesn't look well. Like so there's so many other comics out there that really shares about this, that I think we need to do more YA content.
Most definitely. If anything too, it's comics are such a kind of that classic pictograph to convey our histories. I think some of the best comic books are the autobiography things like you were mentioning with Smile.
Yeah.
You know, just conveying, it's like, hey, I went through this. Chances are somebody else out there right now is dealing and coping with this. And, you know, and you know, what a wonderful thing if you can, share that experience and be able to connect with people on that level. And then, also the Harry Potter stuff is fine too.
Harry Potter stuff is amazing. That's really, really good. It's not just fun, man. I wish I was so
so you're a
creative.
big Harry Potter fan, huh?
I am. I mean, who's not? I guess there's people who don't like it. I don't know. Yeah, but I do like Harry Potter. And yeah, speaking about autobiography, have you read David Small's Stitches?
No.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's about his upbringing where his parents put him in the basement. I think his dad would constantly scan him because they think he has a brain tumor. And he developed a brain tumor because his parent was constantly scanning him.
Oh my God.
It was, it's the autobiography. It was great. Yeah, this comic called Stitches. Yeah, there's, man, I love stuff like that. Just reading and, just educating yourself. Because we only have one life, the more you read, the more you know.
Yeah.
I think the more you can experience.
They have 9.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, they have 9.
That's what my cat tells me. There's like a talking cat.
Yeah. I mean, I love reading. That's what I do. That's why I do comics. That's why a lot of us do comics. It's a difficult medium, but
It's it's one of those two that like you were saying earlier. You can pretty much do it by yourself. I have my limitations, so I usually have graphic designers and stuff and people that actually know the English language. So we call them.
You're better than me, I bet. Talking about language.
I can understand you better than I can understand. I'm like, what the fuck are you saying, bald man?
No, I think a lot of time it takes practice. Sometimes it doesn't even, you can write atrocious English or like bad grammar. If the story is sincere, it's gonna reach so far. Yeah, I think so too. I sincerely think so. That's why I don't know if you read a lot of, you still actively, read about manga or no. Like the creator of One Punch Man, the person that can just punch and destroy all the enemies. His drawing wasn't that good, and it's because of the story and the publisher and then an artist came in to redraw the comic. It was just scribbles. I won't say scribbles, like it's just very basic. So I think a good, honest story really goes a long way. If anything, I think it's more about the storytelling. The idea. Yeah. Putting it in paper. Yeah.
Yeah, how it translates and how it can be conveyed. Sometimes if the writing and everything else is there, not necessarily all the art has to be right there. But then you can always have somebody, like in this case, redo it.
Yeah. There's so many reviews, So if you get a good story, people see it, you get traction. You can always get someone else to draw it. The main thing is to about story, and I think that's what's lacking these days in the industry, or maybe I shouldn't say that because we got new publishers coming like Aftershock, all these different indie publishers coming with their own content. I think that industry is gonna change so much because of COVID and also because of the current situation we are in, with protesting and BLM. Yeah, I sure hope things change, so. Yeah,
I think it's just a matter of us making those changes and seeing where things are fractured and where the cracks are, and then just figure out how do you repair those cracks? How do you make them stronger or change it altogether? It's like reinventing the sandwich.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I agree. Reinventing the sandwich. Yeah, we pretty much got the foundation. We just have to, work together to see through this. I think, the country as a whole or the industry as a whole, there's so much things to do, so many healing to do.
Yeah. I think, just keeping that conversation going and constantly going back and forth, and always be prepared to break bread, and in some cases, instead of bread, use a lettuce wrap.
Yeah.
Less carbs.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I sure do hope. I mean, going back to the industry, the comic industry, I sure hope someone out there that has the power to do this really actively look into the industry and what it's lacking in general, in terms of having a platform. Because I still don't think right now, even without comparing with other countries, like we're lacking a platform that really showcases the American stories or comic, like in a good way. Like we don't really have a big publisher that has a huge digital platform that can let Western stories and Western art style flourish. Because I mean, if you look at the Chinese webcomic platforms, or like the Korean webcomic platforms, it's mostly like manga art style. Yeah. So outside of Go Comics that I mentioned, which is syndication comics, I think if syndication comics can work, surely someone must be able to figure out this thing, put together a platform that's uniquely, workable for this industry in the West.
Right. The yeah, and it doesn't, with how Comixology is set up, that's probably not the case.
Yeah. I mean, for a while, I think Amazon has their own Amazon Originals that is also like creating comics, which was not branded with Comixology. I think people are just trying to figure this out. People who are in power, I sure hope they look outside of the country because like there's evidently success, and pretty much Tencent, the Chinese company, Chinese webcomic platform, was looking at Korean for success, and they were able to replicate it. I don't see why we can't do it here. It's just a matter of time, and I do think if we don't get into it in the next few years, we're gonna be so way back. Like I'm talking about really, really way back, because.
Culturally.
Yeah, I don't know if culturally, I'm just looking at it like as a platform.
Okay.
It's almost like how Amazon came into existence and everything is just taken over. The brick and mortar shop just goes down because you just can't compete because you don't think about it. Maybe it will be a case that indie pop shops, bookstores come around and we figure that out. That's how I look at it, because like right now, like all this webcomic platform, they're looking into AI. We're talking about like, just creating
accessibility. Yeah.
And no, it's not just that. Like so the company that bought over like Korean Webtoons, Naver Webtoons bought over. I think it's similar to one of the Chinese apps. It's called Toutiao. And what that app can do, just looking at what that app can do, you can pretty much figure out how powerful Webtoons is going to be, because this Chinese app called Toutiao, which is involved in AI, when you on the app, it will relay the entire user experience based on what you like to read. So it would just aggregate for you, just kind of like Netflix, but also it can write news article for you. Right. So imagine if you read like Batman, and then this, you're reading Batman, like issue 15, and then you go back, you finish the episode on your phone, then when you're eating dinner, and then you look, there's a notification, you click on it, and it says a little teaser. Do you know this episode of Batman 15? 60% of people think that Joker shouldn't die. And then you'll be like, oh, really? Like, it just keeps you on the app. Like,
it's that's just... Hook.
Yeah, a nice hook. It's just the tip of the iceberg, and from there on, you can see what you're looking at. Just know what your interest is. It's gonna be so scary.
Well, it doesn't have to be Skynet,
No, it's not. Yeah, no. I hope not. I don't aggregate that as well. But I think just in terms of generating content for creators who have interest in here,
Right.
and just news that you would like to look at, provided you allow the permission.
Right.
That's something so far ahead in terms of AI that we don't even know. And then we don't even have a platform like that.
Right.
Let's talking about an AI that could do this. It's just really far behind. So man, I
Yeah.
hope we get into it earlier.
Well, I wonder too, maybe, like I know, I don't know if you know the artist and writer Zach Howard.
Yeah.
He's down here in Denver. He's a huge proponent and advocate of Webtoons. He would represent them sometimes in at New York Comic Con and stuff. He's
Oh,
got
Zach Gossett? I didn't know. Okay.
yeah, Zach Howard. Yeah, so yeah, he's got a good following on there, and yeah, anytime you talk to him, he's like, dude, just put it, you print the book for the prestige, to have at the table, and to put it at bookstores, but the real meat is, online and at Webtoons. So he's constantly directing people there, and I'm thinking, it's just like, yeah, I think artists in the U.S. Should look outside of the U.S. It's no more of this border stuff. It's like Webtoons is a fantastic platform, and investigate platforms like that, and design your wares maybe to fit on there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we should, as artists, it's always good to go out and reach, especially you're talking about how far you can reach on your online presence, because these day and age, if you have a book and people are actively going, leaving Facebook, people are even on Instagram are like just looking at art. So it's hard to interact with your readers on Webtoons. People can put comments, you can integrate and talk to them. But I do think though that it's come to a saturation point where the readers who actively go on these different platforms, they're actively looking for a specific art style, and also looking for a specific, I shouldn't say specific story. I mean, based on what I know on Webtoons and just looking at this past few years, it used to be when the previous head of content was there, Tom, it's so diverse, a lot of different American art style. Like you have like mainstream art style. Right now, the mainstream art style don't even do well because the people who go there, it's like I like Starbucks. I just like Starbucks coffee, and then when I go there and I see some other black coffee that I do not know, I'm not gonna read it or drink it.
Right.
I still do think that someone with power should come out and do it the right way, create a platform that uniquely is going to bring readership in terms of like, oh, I actively like the Western style and I want to look at the stories here. Right. And that would benefit the audience, because right now, even most of the Webtoons, the latest few Webtoons, I think the art style is more and more prevailing. Like it's looking more like manga work up there. That's my own take. It might just be me from my own perspective. Yeah. I think there's really an opportunity for someone to do this, and I don't know why nobody's doing it. Well, maybe because it's money, or they don't think that way.
And for the artist, for the creator, the more the platforms, the better. If Webtoons has a platform, maybe you've got a project designed for that. If somebody in the U.S. Can actually, build something to that, a different type of platform, great. Go do something directed towards that, and then or put all your wares on both of them, and see what does well and what doesn't. I think the best thing too might be just if you're able to write and create artworks and stories that are just honest and with enough heart, you're going to find your audience.
Yeah, I agree with that to a certain extent.
Right.
Like in this case, it's very tricky because there's certain sensibility, maybe not so obvious with the Korean Webtoons. But if you look at like Attention's comics, mostly their sensibility is so different. The way they tell stories and gags is very different from Western comics.
Right.
And you know, I do hope there's actually a platform that caters to the kind of sensibility with American creative story writing and storytelling that people can go on to. Because if the audience is like, let's say the audience like horror, and then this platform is all about horror, and then even if you have a good romance story, viewers is gonna like man, you know, like that's what I'm starting to see. And not that, you know, on Korean webtoons there's no horror or other genre, like even within them the genre is skewing towards romance, and because, you know, the audience read that, and based on their, I believe based on their own algorithm, just looking at numbers, the numbers do so well in romance that they actively feature it. So people are doing romance comics more and more on the platform. So it's harder for people who do superheroes to have a voice. It's just very challenging. And then you have like Korean webcomic platform like Lezin. It's all mature 21. Like nothing else exists. And that platform is the sole purpose when people want to read mature stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just go there. So I do hope there's one for American creators. I think it will make a huge difference. I really think so. Yeah, that's my personal take on this. Yeah.
Well, and hopefully, too, like in this country, unfortunately, I think I'm just retreading. So feel free to stop me.
No, it's good. It's good.
But I think you know, like with the South Korean model where they match dollar for dollar, I think that should be innate, you know, in the U.S. Unfortunately, it isn't. You know, here we don't invest in culture. We don't invest in the arts and entertainment. If you're in film, you might get a tax incentive, but I mean, that's about it. Otherwise, you have to have millions of dollars of private investors, and they control, you know, the you know, what gets produced. Not necessarily the artist all the time.
Yeah.
But
but
I think you've been able to circumvent that and do your own thing.
Man, it's so difficult, man. Especially I'm doing consultation, and you look at the numbers. Like to do something like a comic app, which you really need to, it costs so much money with engineers just to script like something easy as like laying out and do normal aggregation to do feeds. It's so expensive. Yes. So someone with it, I don't know, like Elon Musk, who wants to do it and say, hey, I'm gonna change the industry, and, you know, put a hard step on this and say, hey, I'm gonna invest. It's gonna take someone like that. And this is also where, you know, it's the position where we're in, right? Because we're so advanced ahead that we have this entertainment industry, we have Hollywood. Like even for my own country, Singapore, a few years ago, the government is just putting money. That's why I get scholarships to go overseas to study, because we're still so far behind. So they have no choice but to like, hey, let's throw money so that we can improve on this sector. And same for Korea. Like for a long time, it wasn't doing well in animation, music, or, you know, that's why they have this fund. And because we, in the States, we're so mature, we have Hollywood, we're still ahead. I think that's why, you know, we don't need this, I guess, the government thinks. It's just the country's situation and times, you know. It's tough. This is beyond what we can, you know, we're just regular citizens. I think, you know, it's beyond our power. Hopefully someone watches your YouTube and comes into this and say, I'm going to put money in this, and then, you know, start looking into it. That's going to change.
Yeah. Hopefully our conversation will just, you know, inspire somebody to come and do things. Yeah. If anything, I think just the information that you laid out and your point of view is inspiring, and the fact that, you know, you're a working artist putting out there, you know, amazing all ages stories and stuff, you know, is invigorating. And also, I mean, you're a teacher. You're a quadruple threat. So I'm glad I don't meet you in a dark alleyway at night, because I don't want to know anything else.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I mean, a lot of my peers, friends, mentors put me in this spot and position. So I'm always constantly thinking of ways where I can share, you know, and, you know, just reach out. I remember during the first few years when nobody cared about Webtoons, I was just screaming to everyone, like, I think this is the future platform. And just to see 50 million active monthly readership. It's just, man, that number is just bogus, So I really hope so. We have something like this because the amount of money some of these people can make, like creators, it's life changing. We're not talking about like a few grand, like mind you. We're talking about like the early people who are in here and the constant creation of these Korean and Chinese artists.
Yeah.
They're looking at 6 figures yearly. This is not a joke.
Jeez.
This is not a joke, right?
Right.
Some of them are getting paid like tens of thousands because of the amount of subscribers, the ad revenue. This is not a joke. There's money in this. And just last year alone, where Webtoons, because for a long while Webtoons wasn't making money, it was just funded by Naver, its parent company. Just last year, I read the financial report. I think it broke even just that 1 year because it opened up something like coin buying, where readers can buy future episodes, and it just blew up. This just 1 year with 50 million active readership, and it just break even whatever it spent on advertising. That is insane.
Jeez.
Yeah, so there's serious money for creators out here. It's not a joke. So I whoever is willing to, whoever has money, you want to do this, just reach out to me. Since I'm in this space, I'm an early adopter.
You've already been thinking about it. They should contact you. You can be the visionary.
I think people should band together and do this right. I think the industry as a whole has this interest. They're thinking of doing digital, platform. I don't know why like people are having difficulty doing this. Like, I don't know. It's just it's crazy just to fathom why it's been done this way. So I do hope something comes out, because it's gonna benefit creators. It's just really gonna benefit creators. Like I said, there's money in this. It's no joke. And then the Korean industry has been making movies after movies. It's almost like a second coming of Hollywood. It's just crazy. Right. Yeah, out of all these webtoons. So, who knows?
Well, and they say that even with China is going to be able to overlap Hollywood in terms of productions.
Yeah, I don't know. And, China, like, they have the money, all these big studios like Tencent. Sure. There's so many things about China that it has a bigger conversation, But yeah, I do think as industry as a whole, like, we're so far behind. Like some of the things that I know that I can't even share for my day-to-day consultation work with studios. There is one studio that's looking at this seriously and is doing the right way, but I can't talk about it. But just with the things I know, it's just, man, this is gonna be a deeper and deeper hole if nobody wants to look at it. Just imagine the kind of stuff that I've already talked about, like the numbers. It's not gonna stop there, and then soon enough that will be, that art style, like the manga art style, is going to be mainstream. And then it's just, man, it's lost opportunity.
Yeah. Well, Nicky, we're going to have to wrap up, but it was great talking to you. Sir, where can people go and find your work and fall in love with your stories?
If you want to find me, I'm on Instagram. Instagram is Nicky, NICKYSOH. That's where my comic posting is. And then if you want to look at my blue pencil illustrations, that's in same thing, Nicky, NICKYSOH, Nicky Soh 07. That's my Instagram for my illustrations. So or if you just search Nicky Soh on Google, I think the first 5 pages is just me. There's no one else. Yeah, so it's easier that way. It's just search NICKYSOH. Yeah, so there you can find me there. Reach out, or if you want to talk about anything, or if you're a student right now, or like student of color, you need help, whatever. Like this is a difficult time. Reach out. I'll do whatever I can in terms of coaching, teaching, or like sharing. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time, Nicky.
No problem. Thank you for having me, and like having me here talking about comics. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to be able to reconnect with you. Stick around after I shut this off and end this session. Anyway, everybody out there on the internet, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Talking Palettes, whatever the hell that means, and I'm your host, Dan Crosier. So thanks, Nicky.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Goodbye.